I read in your book that failure is okay, right?
Failure's okay, just not on camera.
Oh, wait, you said on camera.
Oh, I did? Oh, okay.
How do we deal with the messiness of life? How do we find purpose? We try to answer that by talking to the risk takers, the big thinkers, and the ones who love breaking the mold. And when we're feeling playful, we hide cash in unexpected spots around the US, around the world maybe, just to see who's up for a little adventure. Today's guest is Rich Benoit of Rich Rebuilds. He's got 1.5 million YouTube subscribers. He's a master mechanic.
That was pinched.
Huh?
What is that?
A puddle there.
That's definitely battery coolant for sure.
And he took on Tesla with a wrench and a grin, rebuilding an EV they didn't want rebuilt. He's a rebel in the world of electric vehicles, and he always has a butter knife handy. Yes, a butter knife. I'm Jay Mays, and this is SEARED, the pursuit of purpose. Yeah, that's a rebrand.
I'm curious to see how much of this you leave in, because you can't light it.
Right. I'm gonna
count.
Tell you
1,
what.
2, 3, 5, 6. The reason why I'm counting,
Yeah.
because it gets really difficult to edit that part out as you're lighting it.
Yeah, good point. I didn't think about that.
Well, you're doing great.
Damn you, Rich. There we go. Okay.
You did well. That's good.
Thank you.
So this is like the smokeless one, right? There's gonna be like no
It's
smoke coming from it?
smoke.
Smoke-ish?
Less.
Okay, smoke light.
But not,
Yeah.
not zero.
Yeah,
So we shouldn't be smoked out by it. I don't know. It would be a nice visual, right?
it would.
I hope so.
Smoky, yeah.
So near the end of your book, you mentioned talking to a classroom.
Yes.
You mentioned if you had had some influences when you were a kid, like you are now to these kids, that would have possibly made a positive difference in your life, and that's part of the reason That's part of the reason you enjoyed doing
Absolutely.
that. I wanna hear more about that. Like, what
Okay.
was special about that?
Man, you know, it is smoking. It's black smoke too. Does that indicate a problem?
We're gonna say no. Don't breathe too deeply. Yeah. Just
Okay. Just
don't breathe really
Just
deep.
don't look at it
Shallow.
and inhale.
Yes,
Gotcha. Just
exactly.
shallow breaths.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like none of this.
Yeah. So no waffing.
Yeah.
So yes, I was hoping that when I was younger there'd be an influence like myself, and I hate saying that.
Sure.
Because I don't really think I'm an influence.
Sure.
But I don't. It would have been nice to see someone that I could aspire to that was doing something that I was interested in.
Right.
Because a lot of people in your network, whether it be friends or family or parents in a lot of cases, sometimes your parents aren't doing what you see yourself doing in X amount of years.
Right.
So it was challenging to try to find and reach out to those people. Like if I wanted to do automotive work, or if I wanted to do cancer research or anything like that,
Sure.
you need people that are currently in those roles,
Yep.
to kind of help you formulate ideas for what you'd want to be, like a nice groundwork.
Right.
I didn't have that, so it was difficult for me to really, visualize what that would look like.
Yeah.
Picking someone's brain, what's your day to day,
Yep.
what kind of things do you do in your off time. So that was definitely challenging, but I could tell when I talked to the kids that they were inspired by it. They're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like you do this? Like,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Like, and you do this all the time? This is your full-time job and you get paid? And it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's how I do it. And this is how I started. So it's definitely good to see that for sure. It was good to see them kind of awaken and say, wow, well, where we started, we're not terribly, rich or like wealthy by any means. And we could make it too.
You said you wanted to do, I think in your book, you said you want to do more of it too.
Yeah.
That sort of outreach to, sort of the little ripples you can put into the world, those little echoes.
I would like to do more traveling and kind of like helping kids
Yeah,
figure it out.
for sure.
That would be neat.
And I think what you do not only spans art in some ways, right? Because there's a certain amount of creativity that goes into any build. You're making it your own. You're making decisions on what it looks like, everything else.
Right.
But there's a lot of engineering that goes into it. A lot of technology that goes into it, especially in the case of the EVs. And I think kids that have influences that are multifaceted, that have, that are showing every part of themselves,
Right.
every part of their brain,
Right.
I think that's really good for them.
Absolutely. Because a lot of people don't realize that you're solving a problem and you're using multiple aspects of your brain. You
Yeah.
could either be using your mathematical side,
Right.
analytical side,
Yep.
there's a lot of different like sectors of your brain that you're actuating at all times.
For sure.
And it just makes it into an overall very, I guess, comprehensive, experience for people, because there's just so much work going into it. You're not just stamping things. You're not just saying, all right, next widget, stamp, next widget, stamp. You have to do critical thinking, critical analysis. And you're constantly learning.
I think what impresses me about your channel, and you said it in your book too, is all of the content you create is meant to educate, but it's full of humor. It's full of mistakes.
Yes.
You show sort of the dirty underbelly. You also create mythology, I think, a little bit, about kind of how a build went overall.
Right.
So it's not just like follow this 101 on how to do this thing. It's engaging.
Right.
And I think that always, at least for me, it differentiated your channel.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a decision that I had to make to add a different element to the channel, because at the end of the day, the genre is just automotive repair.
Right.
And there's a lot of big players in automotive repair. There's a lot of people doing really big, really, really cool stuff.
Right.
But not everyone is really injecting humor into it.
Right.
And a lot of people don't really give the full idea of the build and how many mistakes they make along the way, or how long things actually take, and the financial aspect of things. A lot of people just say, hey, this project was great, it cost a lot of money, but it's done, yay, and they have a little boat party.
Sure.
Whereas I'm like, guys, I ran out of money 6 months ago, and you guys aren't watching the videos. Therefore, I can't afford to finish this project. But I'm gonna try to dip in the savings and see what I could do. Like I'll give the honest, like this is the honest truth. Like if a projects fail, sometimes I lose interest in projects and they don't get completed.
That's when you were talking about, there could be budget issues, or or you can't find something, whatever. The one that popped into my head was, you might just lose interest.
Yeah.
Like at some point, and you have the pressure of creating content kind of behind you.
Absolutely.
So losing interest it's probably pretty uncomfortable, right? Or have you moved past that?
It's uncomfortable to admit that I lost interest in something.
Okay.
Because sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and be like, I have the best idea in the world. There isn't a single person that has a better idea than me right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like a genius. Like, look at me, I'm a genius.
Fist pump.
And the fist
Go
pump.
to the bathroom, like brushing your teeth.
Yeah,
like
high fives.
Boom.
You do a few push-ups in the bathroom. You come out like, yeah, look at me, right?
Yeah.
In reality, slowly over time, it's like, oh wait, there's a new project.
Yeah.
I like this more.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of don't talk about the other one, hoping it goes away.
Yeah.
But your audience will remind you.
Yeah, you set that expectation. You have 1.5 million people
So you said it.
holding you to it.
People think you're going to finish it, because just because I lost interest doesn't mean that others have lost interest.
Yeah.
Even though a video might be 60% less viewed by others, of those people that watch those videos, those guys were into it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see more.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do you mean you lost interest? And then it turns into a whole thing. So it's a realistic aspect of life to lose interest in things.
Yeah.
Nothing necessarily lasts forever.
Right.
And just because it's considered as a job, it's also in my personal space.
Yeah.
Because I'm not working for someone.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't have to produce and say, this has to get done or you're fired. It's all my own personal accord. I suffer my own consequences if I don't succeed.
You used a phrase, I forget exactly what it was. You essentially said, if I was working 9 to 5, that would be one kind of grind. And I think you said you created your own kind of grind, right? And that has to do with having employees?
Yeah.
Or is that sort of your own perspective of who you are? Like what are the pressures there?
So having my own grind is a lot more challenging than, I guess, working your standard 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I mean, you would know this. You're always on.
Yeah, always on.
Like 24 hours a day.
Brain's always going.
I do miss a lot of aspects of working 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Because a lot of decisions are made for me. Because there's some times where I'm just floating through life. I'm like, could someone just tell me what to do here?
Sure.
Tell me what to do.
You're always the guy, though.
Yeah, I'm always the fall guy. So like, which is why I liked working for someone sometimes, because it's just like, hey, listen, you told me to do this, it screwed up. I'm still getting paid tomorrow, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And now it's my failures are attributed to all of the things that I'm doing. So the only reason why I would fail is because of myself, something that I screwed up. So that pressure is on the back of your mind at any given point in time.
You mentioned twice in your book being alone with your thoughts. I think you said once you'd like to get into a room quiet and be alone with them. And then another time you had said being alone with them is a little scary.
It is, because there's always a voice saying, you could do this a little bit better.
Yeah.
You could have done a better job doing this. And it just keeps talking over and over again, which is why I do enjoy social interactions with people.
Yep.
Because when I talk to them, I could see some of myself in them too.
I see.
Like, hey, this person is also doing, you're also an entrepreneur. You're starting your own thing.
Right.
So it's good to have a relatable conversation with someone in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's challenging because when I'm away from those people, and my brain is replaying everything, it's just like, you should have said this different.
Sure. A little bit of judgment going on. Is that what you're doing?
I start because I don't have any peers to do that.
Yeah.
So like my brain has to make decisions, say things, and correct itself. When you work for someone, someone could pull you aside and say, hey man, you probably shouldn't have said that.
Sure.
And you're like, oh, good point.
Yeah.
I don't really have that. I have a comment section, but that's only after the fact. It's already out in the world.
Right.
So
you're out there, you're published, you're vulnerable at that point.
It's it. And if there is none, I have to correct myself, and I have to know when I'm going too far on something. I have to know when I'm talking about a topic too much.
Yeah.
So I have to self-correct, and it's a busy place up there.
It's
yeah. Not productive, but busy.
One of our first conversations via email, I don't know if you sent this email or not, but it was at least with your email alias.
Yeah.
You were someone on your team and asked, why don't we have our comments on our video?
Yes.
Was that you?
That was me.
That was you.
Absolutely.
So, and I gave you a response and it said, I would be overwhelmed.
Yep.
I just recently moved and we have a kid now too.
Yeah, right.
And
I
essentially
that.
Said like, it's a lot to do.
It's a lot. And you're in cybersecurity, and I remember you mentioned that.
Yeah.
And it'd be a challenging thing to keep up with a lot of the comments, is what you said.
I'm gonna pledge on camera that we're gonna keep the comments open on this one.
Let's do it. I think you should.
I want to see what happens.
I think you should. I think it might. Hearing positive feedback from people and people giving suggestions, it's a beautiful thing. It's a dark thing sometimes.
Sure.
But sometimes it can kind of craft you in certain directions. Because if someone says, oh my goodness, I love what you did here.
Yeah.
It's
the best thing.
It keeps you going.
Yeah.
Or they could say, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Darkens your day a little.
So you gotta be ready for it either way. But that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
That's reality.
That's true. That's a great way of looking at it. Like, you can't have one without the other. Mm-hmm. Something else, this really struck me. You said about when you started your YouTube channel, who you were on camera might not have been as genuine as who you are on camera now.
Right, absolutely.
That over time you've gotten, and it's not that you were disingenuous, I'm not claiming that, but just there was a personality there, right? And it was in front of the camera.
I opened up big time.
Right. As your channel got more popular, and I guess that's a bit of irony, as you had outreach to more people, the channel became more you.
Right.
What do you attribute that to? Is it your comfort over time? Is it the bit wider audience? Is it comments from people?
I would say it's the comfort over time.
Okay.
Not everyone's real personality comes out on camera.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what's in people's minds might not jive well with the mass way of thinking.
Right.
People might not agree with your thoughts in your head, so you kind of keep them a little bit more subdued.
Right.
Over time, I've gotten comfortable with myself and my audience to say those things. So when I do start saying something like, oh my gosh, I feel the same way, like you hit the nail on the head.
Right.
That's reassuring to know that others also follow the same, the same ideology or same like rules that I have, set for myself in my head. So that's very comforting at times, but also scary too, because someone might say, I don't agree with that. Like, that's not funny.
Sure.
And you can't make fun of that. I think the one thing that I did, this is the end of a video, I made a project, and it wasn't like beautiful, or it wasn't like pretty or anything, but it was like a solid project that I was proud of. And I knew I was gonna get hate for it. And at the end of the video, I said, is this the prettiest thing I've ever made? And I said, no, it's not. And I said, is your wife the prettiest woman in the world?
Yeah.
You picked her for a reason.
Right,
Like,
absolutely.
People don't have to have all the superlatives, like, oh, you're the best, this,
Sure.
but like, this was built for a reason. Like, I have this for a reason.
Are you saying those Father's Day cards and Mother's Day cards?
Oh yeah,
birthday
exactly.
cards, those aren't real?
Yeah, those are, damn you, Hallmark.
Those aren't for every? Oh.
So that's what I said.
Yeah.
And people were like, wait a minute.
Okay.
He's kind of right. But people love to have this like false sense of what the world really is.
Yeah.
And just because, you're doing something doesn't mean that everyone has to follow the same thing. Someone might think, hey, you know what? That guy looks like he hit every tree on the way down. You know what I mean?
Sure,
but to someone else, that's their treasure.
Yeah, that
For
is.
the projects, it's similar. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, listen, you might not like this, but a lot of work went into this, and I love this for these following reasons. You don't have to agree.
Yeah.
So people love that honesty.
Yep.
But a lot of people hated it too.
Really?
Yeah, they were like, well, she's the pretty. She's the prettiest girl. What are you talking about?
Because you were challenging assumptions is why they hated it. It wasn't necessarily that you were wrong.
I didn't say,
it's that there was a certain level of discomfort for them. You challenged them.
It was an uncomfortable thing to propose. Yeah. And it confused people, and some liked it, and some didn't like to be challenged on that.
I'm gonna stoke this fire a little bit.
Okay, cool.
Because we're
How's it going
Ash.
so far? Should I like dial it down? Like, should I dial it down a notch? Just be okay.
No.
Okay, cool.
I should have stoked this.
Well, it was like roaring before.
It was.
I was.
But
like,
then when it came down, it was just all the way down. Okay, started.
It was perfect.
Excellent.
Now it's just smoking.
Well, you said that's what you wanted. One of the things that struck me about the YouTube channel, or your book overall,
thanks.
I guess another thing that struck me, I've probably already mentioned a couple that struck me.
This book is striking a lot.
It's very striking.
Striking book.
Look at it. Here's your book here. These are all my dog-eared pages.
Oh, nice.
And the rest.
You took the cover off. I like that.
This is honestly his book.
No, I like that because it makes it look like you have like this leather-bound, like, things that you can just keep your books on and stuff, the bookshelves.
The challenge to Tesla as a corporation, to me, and my friends are going to hear this and they're going to think I'm underselling a little bit, but I think I was a bit of an Elon fanboy.
Yeah.
And I believed in his, first principles thinking. I believed in his humanity going to Mars.
Right.
Like all of these sorts of things. By the way, the interview's not getting any tougher at this point. Yeah. I'm not going to challenge you.
No, of course. No, I love this.
But I was on board until his pedo tweet during the rescue. Yeah. That was like that was a shift for me. Like it started to get awkward at that point, and then I was completely, I wouldn't say anti, but I went the other way right up until the Twitter purchase, and then I went just kind of off entirely. Like this is not me.
A lot of people thought that same thing because there's bumper stickers now that say, I bought this car before I found out he was crazy.
I need to buy my brother one of those. He would appreciate that.
It's a big deal, but you'll also see that people will follow and be on board regardless. Like, he had to do that.
I'm sure.
That was great. I was like, wow, I would have probably phrased it differently.
My question, though, isn't really about Elon. It's about your challenge to a corporation who wanted their product used one way. And this also harkens back to the VCR analogy that you made early in the book, where you talk about just seeing this and wanting to fix it. But with your first Tesla, that was Dolores, right?
Yeah.
You approached this project as like, this seems cool to me. I've always wanted a Tesla. I want to do this. This is a challenge. It's fun. It's exciting. And then kind of the rest of like who the brand is and all of that kind of got wound into the narrative over time.
Yep.
Like, did that surprise you right away? Like how difficult Tesla was, what their stance was?
I've heard stories. I didn't think they'd be that rigid.
Okay.
So I've heard stories like, hey, they could be kind of challenging. You better watch out here. I said, no, I got this. Look, I'm handsome. Look at me. I got this. I walk right in there.
Exactly.
They were very anti, you can't fix this yourself.
Right.
Only we can fix it.
Right.
Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, we built the car. Of course we can do it, and you can't. So that was their major stance. That I think it was going to lead to this?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Do you classify your relationship with Tesla over the course of the videos until now? Do you classify it as like always at odds, or was there a period of time where it was like, oh, I love your car. This brand knows I'm doing something for them in terms of popularity?
It was.
Or was
it was always at odds, pretty
always
much.
At odds. Okay.
Actually, towards the end, when I no longer was interested in doing Tesla content, They were like, hey, how did we do?
Yeah.
I actually got an email from one of their engineers that said, from this Tesla email address said, hey, listen, we've been working hard over the X amount of years to bring this to you, to make it easier for people to service and repair their cars.
Yeah.
How do we do? And this was years after I stopped talking about them.
Wow.
And I was like, well, thanks.
Sure.
But, the changes that you've made thus far are good, but it required me beating the door down for years to get to this point.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing. It's almost like the most similar example I can give it is, when you have a car, right?
Yep.
You're driving the car, and all of a sudden, a dog starts chasing you, right? You drive down the street, dogs chase cars all the time.
All the time.
Right? That car stops.
Yep.
What does the dog do?
Loses interest. Yeah.
What do you do with it?
Yeah.
I got it. Now
Yeah.
it's like, you can't tear it apart.
He doesn't know what to do.
You can't do anything.
Yeah.
You just leave it.
Yeah.
So that a lot of that was me. So Tesla, the car stopped.
Yeah.
I was chasing it, like, do the right thing, do the right thing, do the right thing. And then I stopped chasing it. The car stopped. I'm just like, well, I want to chase something else now.
Yeah.
Like, I think I've come as far as we can go. It made a lot of huge changes, but I'm just like, you know what? I think it's time to move on to something else now.
Yeah. That's interesting. Whenever someone asks me, who are you interviewing this series, my thought initially was to tell them like Rich Rebuilds. And then I started telling them about the guy who, rebuilt his own Tesla from a flooded Tesla, or the guy who did the Tesla V8.
Yeah.
And I got more like brain clicks when I mentioned it that way. Not that your name isn't super recognizable.
Yeah, no.
But like
no,
people
no,
knew right away, like,
oh,
the
that
Tesla.
guy.
Yeah.
You're the Tesla guy.
I got
Absolutely.
a lot of that. Yeah.
It's hard to pick something. Like, what do you pick? Like, if you're semi-known for a few things, you have to pick the thing that resonates the most with people.
Sure.
You say Rich Rebuilds, like, what is, okay, a guy named Rich that rebuilds stuff. But you think, the second you say Tesla, a light bulb goes off.
Yep.
Then you say, wait, V8 Tesla, another light bulb goes off.
Yep.
At the time, it was the only one in the world for like years.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. They have an association with it now.
The only other Tesla YouTuber that I really think of, and it's not so much a Tesla YouTuber as she is just kind of an engineer, but is Simone Giertz.
Of course, yeah. She's great.
And I'm sure like that, it's not exactly your sphere.
We did a video together.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we built the pickup truck together.
Yeah. But to me, the Tesla brand was always this oddity. And to see the YouTubers who have treated it like an oddity and had fun with it, I think the content's a lot more fun. But I'm also not rebuilding a Tesla in my garage.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Not at this point, at least. Let's talk YouTube a little bit in production.
Yeah.
Every time I see someone who films on iPhones only, or similar, I'm envious. This I can wrap my head around how to create content on, because maybe, I don't know if it's not necessarily more technical. I think maybe it's just more segmented. Like there's sound and there's video and there's composition.
So there's one area that I excel in is just off the cuff.
Yeah.
No prep. Take the phone out and you start recording.
Yeah.
Like that's the way I do it.
That's been your style.
I've made videos that have done extremely well with just me holding up with the front-facing camera.
Right.
With a crack in it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even, if there's a smudge all over my face, I didn't clean the lens, and I've made wonderful content that way. I think a lot of it is the content itself.
Yeah.
A lot of the times you could have the biggest, fanciest movie cameras in the world, and it might not be able to capture the authenticity of like a one-on-one conversation.
Moment,
So for example, I use a Nintendo as an example. Remember the Nintendo Wii?
Sure, yeah.
How big that was?
Yeah, it was massive.
It was huge.
I used to go home at lunch just to play the Wii.
The Wii. Do you remember what the graphics on the Wii were like?
Oh yeah, just the little Mii's.
They were horrid.
But it was fun. Let's do tennis.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. So a lot of it, I consider this to be like the Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, like as you're setting up, because I've been in high production environments.
Yeah.
And sometimes this is a lot more authentic because you know everyone here and stuff.
Right, yeah.
But sometimes you lose a lot of it if you just can't be, candid. Like even moving around's a big deal.
Right.
Like moving around, dipping your toes in the water.
Yeah.
And doing stuff like that. It adds more real sense of things.
Yeah.
And I think you're doing a good job with this here because this is a literal casual environment.
It is.
We're literally on a bench.
We strive to make this casual.
No, this is cool, but it's hard because the production isn't casual, but the environment's casual.
That was one of the early challenges with even the ideating kind of around what this would be, right? It was we knew it was next generation for SEARED. We knew there were certain guests that we would just love to have. We knew we wanted the authenticity that we had in the original production to exist in that space. So the creation of this there was a lot of back and forth because you risk being at odds with what you're creating. You know, if you do high production, you risk being at odds with that if you want it truly authentic. Well, thanks for recognizing that.
No, it was cool.
That.
I could see it.
You mentioned living with, I think it was your mom and aunts.
Yep.
Yeah, all of your aunts.
Yeah.
I don't have the same A sound you do for that word, for aunts and aunts.
Yeah, aunts, yeah.
It's way more nasally the way I say it, aunts.
Where are you from?
This state, further down south.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. You know, living in that space, and I think you mentioned it later in the book, like when it comes to your reactions, you kind of learned how to like kind of step back and assess the situation, but you were ready for chaos.
For sure.
Like how did that affect you into your adult life?
Man, you know, living with different people over the years definitely helped strengthen that for sure. You learn a lot about the people that are related to you, and you in a sense get to learn more about yourself.
Yeah.
Like this is my family.
Yep.
It's not just, oh, my brother's annoying, or like my mom, you know, I have to clean the house again, that stinks.
Sure.
It's literally different people that are a slight extension outside of that. And you learn from them too.
Sure.
So for example, you know, if someone is frustrated, I just don't get to learn internally how people, you know, resolve issues. I get to learn like, hey, this is a second family member. That's how they fix it.
Sure.
Or my uncle, like he's crazy. Or my uncle's funny.
Right.
And like I want to be like that.
Yep.
You know, so you definitely get a new element to things, you know, when you live with like multiple people over years, for sure.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That seems like a good experience. And not that you wouldn't have had maybe those family members, you know, visiting once in a while.
Right.
But actually having them in your household, and
It's a little different.
I'm sure.
It's very different. When someone lives in your home, it's like, oh boy, you're still here, huh? Yeah.
Huh. Well, you gave us a list of 20 things not to talk about. Do you want to go through that list now?
No, it's so far you're doing well.
Okay.
So I think when you ask me a question, I'm just gonna stay silent.
Yep, perfect.
And you'll just cut that part,
the
or
rest of
leave
the
it in
show.
awkwardly. Yeah.
Yeah, we could leave it in awkward. Just stare at one another.
Yeah. Sorry, Rich, did you hear me? Let me ask this again.
One more time.
Yeah.